So there's only one reason why people fight or argue in this world. And sadly, most people never understand this. It all boils down to safety. You see, in a relationship, if a spouse is lying to the other spouse, well, there is going to be a threat in that relationship. The other spouse is not going to feel safe. In a child parent relationship, if the kid doesn't listen, right? Mom and dad are saying, clean your room, and the kid just doesn't do it, for instance, then the relationship as a parent is being threatened because your child is not listening to you, and there's a safety issue there in your child parent relationship, and there's going to be a fight. And on the flip side, when a child is always being told, clean your room, do this, do that, then his or her independence personality that's being developing right now is being threatened because dad and mom is telling them what to do all the time, and there's going to be a fight. So if we know that every single argument is all rooted in safety, what can we do about it? Well, we don't make the other person feel safe. What we do is that we make the person in the mirror feel safe first. And once the person in the mirror feels safe first, then we can extrapolate this safety to other people in the room and really bring the tensions down. But it all starts within yourself first. And what I like to do here is I want to give you tools so that feeling this safety becomes your default mode of operation. So imagine this for a moment. There's a father trying to teach his son how to skate. And he goes in the ice and he's never skated before. It's first time he puts skates on, first time he goes on the ice. And he falls flat on his face. Flat on his face over and over and over again, even cries. And after 10 minutes or so of falling flat on his face, he says, son, come over. I'm going to teach you how to skate. How do you think the kid is going to react? Obviously, he's going to say, no, you're not teaching me how to skate. You can't even skate yourself. The child is not being disrespectful. He just feels that the person who wants to teach him how to skate doesn't know how to do it, is not safe in his own standing, cannot hold his hand through this experience. Now, the main reason why people are not secure in their own standing is because they're chasing an ideal version of the future, and they're attached to that ideal version of the future. And there's an example that we just gave you earlier with the child falling down. Well, it would be very easy for the father to get really, really mad. Why? Because in his version of the future, he sees his child as being able to do it very well and quickly. But this is not what is happening right now. And therefore, there's a safety issue when it comes to that visualization of the ideal future. It is threatened. That ideal future is being threatened. And therefore, the person, the father in this instance, would get angry, even though he has great intention. And the child obviously is scared of doing it for good reason. The father might get angry just because it threatens his ideal future. Now, at the end of the day, this all boils down to a feeling of powerlessness, and no one likes to feel powerless because to be powerless is the ultimate unsafe feeling. Now, let's look at it from a slightly different angle. When we have an argument with anyone, what happens? We give our power away to the other person. We allow the other person to dictate our internal temperature, to dictate how we feel, by giving them free range on our feelings, on how that blood boils inside of us with our rage. What if, instead of having a tiny, tiny square of safety, we could have a large net that is almost infinite and we can feel safe anywhere, anytime? This is what we're going to do right here. But before we do that, there's a second part to the equation, and that has to do with power dynamics. So imagine that you are meeting a celebrity, and the celebrity is on top here, and you're at the bottom. Typically, what happens? We feel that the celebrity is above us and we're below, right? But what happens in this situation? Where the elastic is stretched, there's a lot of tension here. We are not at the same level, because if we were at the same level, it would be like this, right? So in power dynamics relationship, where for instance one person is above the other, where we give our power away, right? So we give our power away to the celebrity in this instance by making them above ourselves. There's this stretch that is here, which over time makes this relationship very strained. Same thing happens in any regular relationship in your life, especially in fights. When we stretch this and we give our power away, we put the other person above us because, once again, we give our power away. This creates a lot of tension and eventually it just snaps. So, what is it that happens in argument that virtually guarantee that things are going to go from bad to worse? Well, if you are arguing and you're having fights with your boss, for instance, or a colleague, and you say, "Well, he's a real asshole," and you say it publicly and you think it too, then what you just did is a commitment to that feeling, to that belief about that person. Now, if you call that person out loud to be an asshole, even with just your peers, your friends, or your spouse, your kids, or random strangers, you made a public commitment. And when you voice that out loud, that solidifies into a belief and an identity. And once you made that public commitment, it becomes so much harder to change. The same thing happens with an internal commitment. When you call your boss an asshole, but you just keep it in your head, then within you, there is this little script that says, well, you already called your boss an asshole. He cannot become a good person tomorrow, right? You need to keep this alive, this belief alive, or else you're a liar. And no one wants to be a liar. It feels unsafe. And so this internal scripts that always happens within us, this belief system is what is keeping us stuck. Now, I want you to write this down because this is so incredibly important. The key to dismantling any argument, anywhere, anytime, to eliminate the fear behind these arguments, is to detach from your desired outcome. I'm going to show you how in just a few moments. The key is to have the internal knowledge that no matter what happens, and this is important, no matter what happens, it's the best results for you. You might not see it as the best results for you right now, but in the long run, it's going to have a positive impact on you. And I want to give you an example here to really bring this home because this is so important. I know you've been in situations where you're rushing to get somewhere, right? And you're late, really, really, really late. And you finally get there and you feel so bad because you're late, but the event just started. Had you gotten there on time, you would have been early and you would have been waiting and waiting and waiting. Probably you would have been upset. You would have told yourself, I could have waited an extra 30 minutes at home. But everything worked out in your favor anyways. Being late worked out in your favor anyways. And I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, where there's thousands of proof within your life where things don't go necessarily according to plan, but it actually works out in your favor in the long run, or sometimes in the short run too. Now, let me share something really personal with you. My wife and I have issues. We have lots of issues. And they've been going on for a long time. But as you know, I've had a massive car accident a few years ago, about 3 years ago, which led me to be in the hospital for 8 months with my son. And as a result, I went back after to Canada because my mental health was fucked up. Spent 13 months there. And my wife, before that, had been talking for years about divorce. Every time something would go wrong, divorce, 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 divorce. And she knew that this was the worst word in the world for me because I was shitless scared of losing my kids, my son and daughter. And so when I went to Canada for my mental health, I was terrified. I was terrified of spending time without my kids. I was terrified about how it would destroy the already fragile relationship that I had with my wife. But I had to do it. Spent 13 months there. And it was incredibly difficult emotionally to not be able to connect with my kids, with my wife on a daily basis, just being able to hug them or whatnot. But I learned something. I learned that being away from my kids is not the worst thing in the world because I was able to do it. I was able to sustain this relationship for 13 months without seeing them except on the phone, talking to them on the phone. And so the biggest fear that I had, which is to lose them, was basically no big deal. You can do this. I mean, it's not that I want to lose my kid, but I can actually deal with it. I found solutions to work around it, right? And so when I came back home to China with my wife and kids, I was a totally new man because I did not have this fear of this divorce word anymore. It was no longer like a knife or axe hanging over my head, threatening me all the time. Because I knew I could handle, up to a certain point, the really, really terrible consequences that would go with it. And that allowed me to be so much more present with my kids. My relationship with my kids is, I would say, 1,000 times better. It was good before, but it's 1,000 times better now than it was before. And my kids always tell me, Dad, you're so happy. You feel so much better than before. You're so calm. And that is all because I learned that it was okay with those different outcomes. And that is the key. When you're totally detached from the outcome and you know you're okay with whatever happens, once you learn to let go of the outcome, you become unshakable, unfazable. And that is the key here. Coming back to China, even if my wife, which she hasn't done, but even if she was to threaten this particular divorce word, it would not faze me as much as before. Because once again, I'm cool with it. So, anyways, once you learn to let go of the outcome, you become unshakable in your own standing because you have this safety that is there with you at all times. And I want to share with you a few strategies to make this even stronger within yourself. And once you use these strategies, you're going to see not only yourself, your sense of safety expand dramatically, and you're going to feel great about yourself, but you're going to see other people react to you in a totally different manner. And the first technique is pretty simple. It sounds pretty simple, but it's so incredibly powerful. And it has to do with silence. Now, when somebody yells at you, maybe they're trying to gaslight you and insult you. What they're really trying to do is they're trying to trigger you so that they can get an emotional response out of you because that feels safe. To yell at someone and that is just a stone wall is not what most people would like to do. They want to get that emotional reaction out of the other person. But if you tell yourself, I'm okay with whatever outcome comes out of this argument, and you repeat this in your mind, and you say, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that whether this argument goes my way or some other way, it works for me in the long run. And you say this with conviction within yourself, and you know it to be true. What it does is that it buys you 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds of silence because you're thinking about this in your mind. You're talking to yourself like this while the other person is yelling at you. And what happens? There's zero emotional response from you. The other person is yelling at you and you don't give a response back. This can be extremely unsettling and frustrating for the other person that's trying to give you that's trying to yell at you, that's trying to gaslight you. But what it teaches the other person is that you are solid in your own standing. It teaches the other person that you are a safe person because you don't yell back, you don't attack back, right? And you train them neurologically speaking to feel safe in this space, in this argument with you. And therefore, what it does is that eventually, after a few rounds of this, it just de-escalates the situation. At first, it will escalate it because they don't get that emotional response that they're looking for you. But if you stand in your own standing, there's no ammunition that's there. There's nothing. And that is extremely powerful. So point number 2 has to do with the way people argue and how we can handle these different arguments. So in a typical argument, let's just look at something that my wife would say to me, right? So she would say, you didn't take out the trash, you can't do anything, you are such a loser. If I don't tell you to go pick up the kids, you won't be able to take up the kids. Why don't you clean the dishes? Why don't you do this? So it was first about the trash, but then there's a bunch of things that got stacked onto it. There's you're a loser if you don't do this. If I don't tell you to go pick up the kids, you wouldn't know how to do this. You don't clean this, so on and so forth. So it's all stacked one on top of the other. And the reason why the person is doing this is to trigger you. And the reason why the person does this is to trigger your buttons, right? Is to make you riled up. But the biggest mistake you can do is try to defend your character. We never defend our character. What we do is that we talk about the point that is important here, which is not taking out the trash. So in this instance, if I did not take out the trash, I would say, you're right, I didn't take out the trash. Then the other person starts yelling at me again or continues yelling at me again and gaslighting me. You're so irresponsible, you're this, you're that. You're right, I didn't take out the trash. The argument continues. You're right, I didn't take out the trash. Always keep repeating the same thing. You're not denying the thing that you did that was bad, but you also don't go to the other points that are trying to trigger you. And once you do this, you train also the other person's nervous system to know that you're consistent. Just like the previous point where you were silent, you were training the other person's nervous system to know that you were calm, that you were safe. Now you're training the other person's nervous system and your nervous system to know that you're consistent, that you don't go from one side to the other. And consistency is very, very safe. It feels safe. So those are 2 points that you can use right now to dismantle every single argument in your life and make you feel safe and secure in your own skin, in your own standing. Once again, just reframe every single moment of your life as being okay with the outcome, because you know that the outcome is the right outcome for you no matter what. But there's a little asterisk here that I need to put. This does not mean to half-ass it, no. Because it doesn't work if you don't put your full effort, your full presence. The key here is to put your full effort, your full presence in everything that you do, whether it's at work or whether it's an argument that you have with a spouse or a coworker or a child or whatnot. You do everything that you can to solve the issue, to be present in those situations. 100% presence, 100% intention. But you're okay with the outcome that comes from that interaction. Because once again, you know that is the best outcome for you in the long run or the short run. So if you like these kind of videos, please go ahead, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, and bye for now.